Hello, you join me today at the fantastic Forest Lane Fishery, and I'm wanting to run through an approach to catch a mixed bag of fish at a time of the year when the weather's on the change. It's getting a bit cold, a bit dull, but the fish are still feeding, and it's really important to try and target everything in your peg to build up a decent weight. So I'm going to go around to my peg and I'll run through things like my bait choice, my feeding, my rigs, and hopefully we're going to have a really nice day. When you're fishing for a mixed net, the obvious choice of bait generally would be things like maggots and casters and worms. But for me, when you're targeting carp along with a mix of quality silverfish, there's not a better bait than meat. Fish love to eat it, and what also happens is, oh, there's a fish, obviously another one that loves the meat. What also happens is you manage to avoid catching tiny fish. Little roach, little perch, rudd, things like that, which you're going to struggle to catch a match-winning weight of, or have a really nice day's pleasure fishing. It's autumn, just coming out of summer, and the fish are still active and they still want to feed, and it's no good catching them tiny fish. So by fishing with meat, although I'm catching everything, I'm being selective in what I'm catching. I'm not catching small fish, I'm catching quality fish. Quality silverfish, barbel, chub, skimmers, as well as carp, which obviously love meat. By doing that, I'm building a weight much quicker than if I was getting pestered and constantly shipping back with small fish. There we go, that's a quality barbel, probably 1.5 pounds. And rather than catching them small roach and perch and being plagued and still catching these fish in amongst them, I'm coming back with something that's worth putting in my net every single time. By doing that, I'm building up a weight that can possibly win me the match or frame or win a section much quicker. If I'm pleasure fishing, I'm having a nice day catching fish that do pull back a bit, rather than tiny little fish which you're not going to get quite the same level of enjoyment from. Now, the key to fishing with meat for me is to keep some bait going in regular. Fish love to eat it, and what you find with meat is your peg gets better and better and better through the day. So by keeping on feeding the bait, oh, that one had it on the drop. And by keeping on feeding the bait, you're drawing fish into your peg all of the time. They'll come in, they're eating that meat. The more they eat, the more they want, and you can just keep going, keep feeding, keep catching fish and build your peg up as you go. That's a nice little chub, probably 8 ounces. Again though, it's a type of silverfish that's really worth catching. So by building your peg up all day, it's just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger as you go. Now, to start off my peg, I like to get a bit of bait in. So I did feed with my big pot to start with, probably 1/3 of a 250ml pot of 6ml cubes of meat. That gets a bit of bait on the bottom, gets some fish grubbing around, put something in your peg to hold them there. And then after that, I've just loose fed meat with a catapult. So I ship out, lay my rig in, pick up that catapult, maybe 15, 20 pieces of meat, and then just loose feed them around my float. You end up feeding a bit of an area, but that's always good when you're looking to catch a lot of fish. Rather than them all being on top of each other, they're spread over an area, moving around, competing for the bait. Oh, missed a bite then. And you just keep them in your peg for longer. And like I said, with meat, the longer you're fishing it, the better your peg generally gets. And there's another fish. That time my rig had settled, loose fed my bait, missed a bite, put it back in, got another bite. Fire a bit more in now, I've hooked one and shit back. I think this one might be a carp, hopefully, which just goes to prove how many fish love that luncheon meat. In that, I've had a barbel, a chub, and now this fish, which I think is probably a carp. And again, I'm just putting something in the net. Carp are obviously real weight builders, but if you're putting an 8 or 10 ounce chub in your net, a £1.5 barbel, you're always catching something. It's a small carp, but again, lovely fish. Probably £1.5 to £2 more weight going in the net. So I'm just going to repeat the process again. I'm going to ship out. I've already fed some bait as I've hooked that one. Hopefully that'll have got some fish grubbing around, moving about. I'll put my meat on, which I'm hair rigging today. And for me, most of the time I like to hair rig my meat. The only time I really don't is when I'm catching a lot of skimmers. You don't seem to hit as many bites of skimmers with a hair rig. But for the fish I'm catching today, barbel, chub, carp, I feel like I hit a lot more bites. I'll get fish that'll pull my elastic out. And it's just a little bit more efficient. I'm not shipping back without them. I haven't got my bait coming off the hook. Now, I'll loose feed some more bait around my float again. And again, my rig's falling through the water, settling. I'm looking for bites all the time. Now, I'll probably give that maybe a minute or two. I'm not going to give it too long. I'm going to loose feed again over the top. A bit of noise first of all to draw some fish in. And barbel in particular really react to the noise of your bait hitting the water. It'll often hit the water and your float will go straight under. So it's important to keep that bait going in, and like I said earlier, keep it falling through your peg, drawing fish in, getting fish competing. Hopefully you can catch them nice and quick. If you keep shipping back with one every time, then they're going to, you're going to be hard to beat. So I've not caught one yet. Fire some more bait in, and by feeding like this really regular, oh, there's another one on the drop. You're letting the fish dictate where they want to be in your peg. If they want to be on the bottom, you'll catch them on the bottom. Today I'm catching a lot of fish on the drop. And on days when they're really competing, they'll come shallower and you can catch them there. By having a few rigs set up to cover your options, whatever the fish decide they want to do on the day, you're ready for. So, let's see what this is. Well, that's a barbel that had obviously been competing that hard, it'd come off the bottom. And I've caught it as my rig was falling, nowhere near the bottom. Doesn't want to come in. And again, quality fish, well worth catching again. Constantly building the weight and putting weight in your net. One thing you'll find with your feeding is you need to vary how you're feeding through the day. And although I spoke about loose feeding, sort of 15 and 20 pieces, nice and regular, that has changed through the day as the fish have changed the way they're feeding. There's been a lot of fish coming off the bottom today, but I've not really been able to catch shallow. And what's been really good in the spells when I've caught well is to hook a fish and fire a full pouch of meat, probably 40 or 50 bits, over where I've hooked it. Then go out, put my rig in, and don't feed again, try and hook another one and feed again with a full pouch. What that's done is kept them fish really pinned to the bottom. It's not given them a reason to come up and sort of mill about where they're hard to catch. And I could go in there and sit there, one nice positive indication, and it was on. Now while that was good, it can also after a while prove to be a little bit too much bait going in your peg and not quite regular enough to keep drawing them in. So I've also had to change back and forward between feeding like that and sticking to just feeding regular 15-20 pieces every minute, every 2 minutes to draw them in my peg. If I've got a few too many liners and I couldn't really catch shallow and I caught odd ones on the drop but missing more bites than I'd like to, then I've just changed again and gone for that positive big pouch, try and hook a fish, feed a pouch, wait, go back in, hook another one, feed again. That way you've not got too much bait falling through your peg constantly. But you can't do that all day, because if you do that all day, you're putting too much bait in and not often enough, meaning you're not going to keep drawing them fish in your peg and you're not going to keep building your peg up. Right, when it comes to rig choice, what I'm looking to achieve today is to fish one line, loose feed my bait, get the fish competing. And I want to be able to catch them fish wherever they're settling my peg. Now some days that's on the bottom, some days it'll be shallow, some days it can be a little bit in between, you're switching, changing back and forward between the two. So my first rig is for fishing on the bottom. And you'll have noticed when I was talking about my bait choice and my feeding, how I caught a few fish on the drop that pulled my elastic out or as my rig settled. And that is because I fish with my bulk really high. So this is a 0.5 gram float. I've got my bulk there, number 9s at half depth. And then below that, I've just got 3 number 10s spread out. And this rig allows me to cover anywhere from half depth down to the bottom and pick off any fish that might be feeding sort of just off the bottom or following the loose feed down and eating it after it hits the bottom. It just gives them fish a chance to see it coming. So I'll lay it in, hold it tight, loose feed my meat. My bulk will pull my float down, settle it really quick, and then that bottom half just sinks through the water nice and slow and gives the fish time to see it, catches their attention. That rig can be brilliant on days when the fish don't particularly want to come off the bottom, but they're not really nailed to the bottom as well. It just gives me an option of catching them when they don't really want to come shallow. I can catch them on the bottom, I can catch them on the settle. Now after that, anything above my bulk, I've got a couple of shallow rigs for. Now the first one's set to fish sort of 18 inches deep. I can move that float around a little bit. It's just a little 4 number 10 float, 2 number 10s down the line and 2 underneath the float to cock it quick. My other one's to fish a bit deeper, sort of around about the depth of where that bulk is. So I'm covering my depths from the bulk upwards should the fish want to feed shallow. By doing that, I'm making the most of that one line approach. Wherever the fish want to feed, whatever depth they want to feed at, I've got it covered with those 3 rigs. Right, I've had a brilliant day today at Forest Lane. Caught loads of fish, a real mix of species. I've had barbel, carp, chub, skimmers, I've had a tench, and just loads and loads of bites. And it's just gone to show the pulling power of that meat. It draws absolutely everything in your peg, but everything is a quality fish, really worth catching. And as we head into sort of early autumn, meat can be a really fantastic bait. The fish are still feeding, they're wanting to eat, and by fishing with meat and feeding meat, you can really draw them quality fish into your peg and really make the most of your day. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please share it and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back again soon.